Today we are learning about percents, fractions, and decimals and how to compare and convert from one form to the other. This lesson is being recorded from my home, so it will take me longer to add writing to the presentation. Therefore, I'll be pausing the presentation a lot more than usual, so I hope it is not too choppy for you. This should be a review of what you learned last year. But if it's not, make sure you're taking good notes here and writing down anything that you need. As in previous video lessons, feel free to pause, rewind, or skip ahead wherever you best see fit. And away we go. We will start by copying and completing the following table. This is something, again, you should know how to do, but I'll talk you through it. Please pause the video and copy this down. And when you're ready, restart it and we will fill in the table together. Our first row, we're given the decimal of 3/10. This is why I want you guys saying stuff out loud properly. 3/10 is simply the fraction of 3 over 10. Now we know that for percents, we are always comparing things out of 100. So 3 out of 10, we hopefully know is the same as 30 out of 100. Therefore, our percent is 30%. Hopefully this isn't taking too long on your end. Now for our next one, we have given the fraction 4/5. We learned in our previous unit to convert fraction to decimal, we just divide the numerator by the denominator. And hopefully, when you divide 4 by 5, get the decimal of 8/10. You can do it by hand or use a calculator. And just like the above example, 8/10, we can convert that to 80 hundredths, which means our percentage is 80%. So when we have decimals or fractions given to us in the tenths or the hundredths, it makes our conversions really easy. But what if we're not given that? What if we have a percentage like the one below, 76%? Well, again, we know percent means out of 100. So 76% is really 76 hundredths. Now we convert that into a fraction. Well, we start with 76 over 100. And hopefully you all realize that that is not in lowest terms, and all fractions must be given in lowest terms. And I know that if I divide each part of the fraction by 4, I will get the simplified version of the fraction, which is 19/25. Now, if you didn't know to divide by 4 automatically, you could have divided both parts by 2. You would have gotten 38/50. Keep going, divide by 2 again to get you 19/25. If you'd like, go ahead and you can try to fill in the chart, the rest of it on your own, if you think you know how to do it. Otherwise, stick with me, pause where you need to, and I'll continue to walk through how to fill this in. So our next given decimal is 22 hundredths. We say that out loud properly again, 22 hundredths, which gives us a fraction of 22 out of 100. Hopefully we all see this is not lowest terms. If we divide both parts by 2, we get our lowest terms fraction of 11/50. Now, if we think back to our original decimal of 22 hundredths, 22 out of 100, which means our percent is 22%. Now, our next one's a little bit tricky. We're given the fraction of 5/6. Using a calculator or going by hand, convert that to a decimal. We do 5 divided by 6, and we're going to get a repeating decimal. We will get 83 hundredths, but that 3 repeats, so it's really going to be 0.83333333, etc. So a decimal if there is no problem. Now for our percent. If our decimal point moves over 2 places to the right, we will get 83%, but we cannot forget about those 3's that repeat. So we go ahead and make it 83 and 3/10 repeating percent. There is nothing wrong with having a decimal or a repeating decimal in our percentage. Finally, we have 130%. Again, the rules remain the same. So even though we're over 100%, this still works. Decimal point, move it back twice to our left to get our decimal. We get 1 3/10. Now for our fraction part, we can write this in either form, either in proper fraction or a mixed number. But if you say that decimal out loud, 1 3/10, well, that gives you your mixed number of 1 3/10. Hopefully this was a review for you and you'll remember how to do this. If you forgot, it's okay. The next 3 slides go over the rules on how to convert all of these forms of numbers. Write down what you need to. Pause it as needed to write down because there's a lot of writing in the next 3 slides. And I'm just going to go right through it. So here we go. Converting decimals. How do we convert a decimal into a fraction? Well, we say the decimal out loud properly, and then write what you said as a fraction. Simplify it if possible. Convert a decimal to a percent. Multiply the given decimal by 100, which means move the decimal point 2 places to the right. And whether your final answer is a number between 0 and 100, contains a decimal, or is greater than 100, whatever the case, the process remains the same. Do not let goofy numbers throw you off. Next, we're converting fractions. From a fraction to a decimal, which we spend time doing in class, just divide the numerator by the denominator. Do not round unless you're asked to. If a number repeats, be sure to use the repeating bar at the appropriate place when writing the final decimal. What about a fraction to a percent? 2 methods. 1, convert the fraction to a decimal, then convert the decimal into a percent by multiplying the decimal by 100, as described in the previous slide. You could also use proportion for this. Set up and solve proportion, in which the given fraction is the first ratio, and the second ratio is set up as some number over 100. Sorry, that should say as, not a. Okay. For example, if we're asked to convert 3/4 into a percent, here's your proportion. 3 over 4 equals x over 100. Cross multiply and divide, or whatever method you like to use, and you'll get x as 75. Finally, converting percents. Going from percent to decimal, we divide the given percent by 100, which is the same as moving the decimal point 2 places to our left. And a percent into a fraction, kind of reverse of the previous one. Set up the given percent as a fraction over 100, then simplify it if possible. So what we just went over is material that should have been taught to you last year. We're now going to apply it in some new material and new kinds of questions. So we're going to look at equivalent expressions. So which expressions given below is or are equivalent to 25% of 150? These are your 4 choices. And we can have multiple answers, not just one. What is key here, is knowing that the word of right here means multiplication. So we're looking at a multiplication problem, 25% times 150. Well, think about which numbers are equivalent to 25%. Is 1/4 equivalent to 25%? It absolutely is. 1/4 times 150 is a way to find this answer. Is 25/100ths equivalent to 25%? Absolutely. Therefore, this expression works. Is 25 equivalent to 25%? No, it's not. This one does not work. And the last one, 150 divided by 4. Well, if we look back at option A, 1/4 times 150, that will give us, we multiplied through, 150 over 4, which we all know means 150 divided by 4. Therefore, option D is also equivalent. Please try the next one on your own. Pause the video here and see if you know this. So we have the same kind of problem as the previous one. We're looking at which expressions are or is equivalent to 3/4 of 100. Well, again, the of means multiplication. So we have 3/4 times 100. So let's ask ourselves, go through each of these 4 possibilities. Is 3/4 equivalent to 75? It is not, so that one does not work. Is 3/4 equivalent to 75 hundredths? Yes, it is, so it works. Is 3/4 the same as 75%? Yes, it is. So 75% of 100 is the same as 3/4 of 100. How about 34 hundredths? Is 34 hundredths the same as 3/4? It is definitely not. So this one does not work. This concludes your lesson for tonight. I will see you in class tomorrow.